Hear, hear.
I must crave your indulgence, my lords, on two fronts. First of all, I was in a select committee which removed me from the chamber during a large part of your lordship's deliberations. And second, I'm going to be the umpteenth speaker to welcome the maiden speech of the noble Lord Moore of Etchingham. My grounds for being the umpteenth such speaker is that he was my editor nearly 30 years ago at the Daily Telegraph, and if that strikes your lordships as an implausibly long time, I can only say that he was, in the world of journalism, something of a Mozartian child prodigy who edited The Spectator when he was, I think, 9, the Sunday Telegraph when he was 11 or so, and the Daily Telegraph when he was 14. And he was an absolutely model editor, fearless in his criticism of those in high places and absolutely impervious to praise from those beneath. Annoyingly, he now writes a column in the Saturday Telegraph. I say annoyingly because I write one in the Sunday Telegraph, and again I find that he's said what I was planning to say, but much better, and today's debate is no exception. He's covered most of the points that I had in mind, so I'll confine myself to making just one. I think it was the noble Lord Wallace of Saltaire who spoke about the fragility, or quoting John Major, spoke about the fragility of the democratic system. And those are words that come very easily. But let's ponder for a second how unnatural, how counterintuitive is the system which we've all taken for granted and about which perhaps we've become a little bit blasé. How odd that we elevate process over outcome. How odd that huge human populations care more about the honouring of a set of abstract rules, something that you can't see or touch or hear or smell, rather than about the victory of their candidate, their tribe. And yet, of course, it is that counterintuitive, and necessarily acculturated notion, a learned notion, that has made possible all of the freedoms and all the personal liberties and comforts that we take for granted in modern liberal societies. Because it's unnatural, it's under constant pressure. We look even at the United States, the first country perhaps founded in the ideal of popular sovereignty. You see how quickly people have moved back to taking a contingent, a provisional view of elections. Almost without fail, every election is met by a series of acts of lawfare by whichever party happened to lose, and that shouldn't surprise us at all. In a way, the surprising thing is that they went for so long without that happening. And that's why I say that the act of voting needs to be enchanted, needs to be given a little bit of magic, needs to be made to feel precious. I mean, after all, your vote statistically is unlikely to change very much. If you think back to the last time you cast a vote, I mean, don't put yourself in the shoes of a prospective imaginary voter, but think of the last time you let a ballot drop from your fingers into that big black tin box. Did you really think that the consequence of your vote would be, more or less parking, or more or less housing, or higher or lower council tax? Or were you not doing it, at least on some level, out of a sense of civic obligation, out of a sense of duty? And it's terrifically important, if democracy is to be made to work, that the act of voting be magnified, dignified, I might almost say sanctified, given a sense of importance beyond the chances of one particular vote in one constituency making a major impact on policy. And that's why, when there is a question of balance between potential fraud or devaluation of the vote and extra procedure, if you like, however minimal, our instinct should be towards always ensuring that people have absolute confidence in the integrity of the process. By the way, I don't think it is that big a deal. I mean, personation may not be a big deal, but neither is presenting identities. Most countries in the world do it. Countries with largely illiterate populations manage it. And I rather agreed with the noble Lord Desai, who said it was particularly patronising to suggest that somehow minorities were not able to vote in the same way that everybody else does. In fact, if anything, I'd have thought ethnic minorities in this country are more likely to have passports than the general population. But it's a bizarre idea that being asked to demonstrate who you are somehow is off-putting. That's not the experience of pretty much anywhere else. I'm glad, by the way, that the front bench opposite agreed on what I think are bigger issues in this bill, the measures against harassment of candidates, the measures to crack down on some of the aspects of postal fraud and of proxy fraud. But I come back to saying, If we want people to vote, if we want to get away from the situation where every election, every recent election, has been won by the stay-at-home party, in other words, people who took the trouble to register to vote and then didn't bother to vote on the day, that is always bigger than the single number of votes of any of the other parties, then we have to restore a sense that casting your vote is a thing of importance and of dignity. Now, of course, that will require some substantive changes. I would like to see a significant shift of power from Whitehall to town halls, from unelected functionaries to elected representatives. But it also involves, if you like, making people feel that there was something special about that trip and presenting their ID and casting their ballot, that was a civic act. It was an act that dignified and elevated the process. If we don't do that, then we're giving up on restoring honour and purpose and meaning to the act of casting a ballot.